Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving into a genuinely gluey, incredibly dark topic today, the cold silence, the scientific reality of nuclear winter. We're going to systematically separate the Hollywood myths we've all kind of grown up with from the stark scientific reality of what a nuclear winter actually means for human civilization. And to do this, we'll be pulling directly from recent, hard data like the Global Catastrophic Risk Assessment of 2024 to figure out exactly what happens to our planet's climate when the unthinkable actually occurs. It's a really dark journey, honestly, but understanding the science here, it's absolutely crucial. So let's jump right in.
So picture this. What happens after you survive the blast? Now, you might be thinking, well, if I survive, I'm lucky, right? When we think about a nuclear event, our minds almost always go straight to the explosion. And yeah, the immediate deaths, which would literally be in the hundreds of millions, are undeniably horrific. But from a global scientific standpoint, that initial explosion is just the beginning of a much larger, much more terrifying sequence of events. Surviving that initial blast might seem like an absolute miracle, but as the data clearly shows, it really just means you're standing at the starting line of an entirely different, incredibly brutal struggle.
We've all seen the movies, right? The bombs fall, there's this blinding flash of light, and boom, it's over in an instant. The screen just cuts to black. That is the classic Hollywood myth. But science tells a much darker, much more complex story. The real-world ender isn't actually that instant flash. The scientific reality is that the aftermath is this slow, agonizing chain reaction. It's not a sudden conclusion to the human story, but more of a prolonged, grueling transformation of our entire planetary ecosystem.
Okay, so how does this nightmare scenario actually build? It happens step by step. Step 1, if a large-scale nuclear war breaks out, the immediate result is massive firestorms sweeping through burning cities. Then we hit step 2, and this is where the global threat truly kicks in: stratospheric injection. The sheer heat of these city-sized infernos creates updrafts so powerful they essentially act like massive chimneys. They forcefully inject smoke directly into the stratosphere, punching way up high, way above the weather systems that would normally wash it all out with rain. And that leads right into step 3, a global sun blockade. Because that smoke is trapped high up in the stratosphere, it begins to circulate the entire globe. It doesn't just stay local over the ruined cities. It rapidly blankets the entire Earth in a dark, gloomy haze.
165 million. Let that massive number just hang there for a second. That represents 165 million tons, or 165 teragrams of black carbon, which is essentially just pure soot. This is the amount of soot that scientific reports, including the latest studies on the potential environmental effects of nuclear war, estimate would be violently injected into our upper atmosphere. 165 million tons of soot piercing the clouds and creating a completely starless sky. And the wildest part? Once it's up there, it doesn't just fade away. It blocks out the sun for years, literally years. Just let that sink in. Imagine years without the sun we rely on to warm the earth and grow all our food.
The direct result of that blocked sun is what we call nuclear winter. Now, don't get it twisted. This isn't just a heavy winter or a bad cold snap. As the scientific definition lays out, it's a massive, catastrophic global climate shift. Without sunlight, global temperatures would severely plummet by several degrees. The entire hydrological cycle gets totally disrupted, leading to what scientists call dry rainfall, basically the total drying up of normal life-giving precipitation. Photosynthesis just grinds to a halt. Crops wither and turn gray in the fields long before they can ever be harvested. And the ultimate consequence of all this? A total failure of the food supply. We are looking at a global agricultural blackout. Scientists warn this shift would inevitably lead to mass famine for billions of people.
And this leads us to one of the most misunderstood aspects of this whole scenario: the critical difference between immediate extinction and civilization collapse. Here is the really chilling consensus from the scientific community. Unless nuclear weapons are specifically designed to kill every single human being on the planet, which they aren't, a nuclear war likely won't cause immediate human extinction. Humanity, just as a biological species, probably survives the initial event. But, and this is a massive, massive but, it would likely collapse civilization. The structures, the governance, the institutions that define our modern, everyday world, they die.
Let's break down exactly what that collapse looks like, because it's a cascading effect, and it happens fast. First, governments disintegrate. Without communication or resources, central authority just evaporates. Next, power grids fail, and I mean forever. We're not talking about a rolling blackout so they can fix the lines. We're talking about the permanent loss of the electrical infrastructure that powers literally everything in our lives. Hospitals go dark, water treatment facilities stop pumping, and transportation networks just freeze in their tracks. Finally, the global economy vanishes. Money, trade, supply chains, completely gone. The highly complex, interconnected systems keeping billions of us alive would simply vanish, plunging whatever survivors remain into an absolute, desperate, daily struggle just for basic survival.
Survivors wouldn't be out there proudly rebuilding modern society. They would be pushed backward into a pre-industrial world, a literal return to the Stone Age. I want you to really picture this gloomy reality for a second. Navigating a frozen, dark wasteland where simply finding clean, uncontaminated water and basic food becomes your all-consuming, all-day task. The scientific data suggests that recovering from this state wouldn't take a few years, it could take decades. It is a complete reset of human progress back to Stone Age conditions, effectively erasing centuries of advancement in a matter of months.
The bang is terrifying, but the cold silence that follows is the real doomsday. That sentence just perfectly hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? It summarizes all the true horrors we've unpacked today. Pulled directly from the insights of the Global Catastrophic Risk Assessment and recent environmental reports, it highlights that the explosion itself is just a catalyst. The true existential threat to everything we've built is the slow, dark, freezing collapse of the biosphere and civilization that happens in the agonizingly quiet years after the bombs stop falling.
Which brings us to the absolute most important question we can ask. Science gives us the warning, but can we change the ending? Look, the scientific consensus provides us with this incredibly gloomy, highly detailed picture of the future, not to paralyze us with fear, but to actually inform us. We now know the exact mechanics of how civilization falls, not by the fire alone, but by the ice, the dark, and the starvation that follow. It's a heavy, heavy realization for sure. But understanding the true stakes of nuclear winter is the absolute first step in ensuring that this specific chain reaction is never, ever ignited. I really hope this explainer has given you a clear, structured understanding of the science behind the silence and leaves you eager to learn more about the critical choices facing humanity's future. Catch you next time.